friends, there is a similarity, proximity, I can't say similarity, proximity of views from the course point of view. Sri Aurobindo's point of view, I have suggested that there is a crisis that we are facing today. I have given you a clues from the writings of two of the neglected ones. So, Tagore is better known, Sri Aurobindo is lesser known. But there are answers if we only have the patience to listen to them. Thank you very much.
Okay, take some questions, maybe have some time.
Has given a good exposition of the concept of culture, universal, globalization. But one thing Mohanty was insisting was the differentiation that existed between the Western orientation and Indian way of life. But anyhow, these are the things that takes place, and Mohanty paper as projected, the presentation of things as existed in the Rabindranath Tagore's in the age and Aurobindo in his age. There is a differentiation, and also the present times. For example, in the present times, this change has undertaken place, this change has taken place from west to east, but now east to west. What I have seen in the United States, when I went into a store, I could see the nationality, people from different nationalities, both in Europe, North America, Canada, and South America, and Africa. I could see all these races in one store. That is, the unity of all the races you can see in the present situation, which was existed in India long, long ago, where India attracted Scythians, Huns, Mongols, Turks, Persians, Portuguese, Europeans, French, English. What country has not come to India in those days? Because this land was considered to be a land of honey and milk. Now the change has taken place. I myself used to see in Hyderabad that Arabs and people from Persia used to come for their living. But now it is different. All the youngsters from the villages are moving towards west, more specifically United States. So this change has to be taken into consideration when we present in our own literature, in our own different presentation, culturally, politically, socially, environmentally. So Mohanty's paper was very excellent, and I think it gives an enlightenment to all those who devote some time over this. Thank you very much, Professor Mohanty.
I invite questions if there are any on Sir's paper. Yes, please.
After hearing your eloquent exposition of the disease, I was thinking of the remedy. What is the remedy? We have been lamenting. Now, why in India we are not able to administer ourselves through our own languages is one question that keeps bothering me all the time. Now, why don't you have translators? Write the laws in your own language. Administer yourselves in Telugu, in Andhra Pradesh, Kannada in Karnataka. Why are you not able to do that? And one judge told me that that way we cannot have the transfer of judges from one high court to another. I said, why the hell you should have a transfer from one high court in one state to another state? Don't you have enough judges in your own state? No, they will be impartial, he told me. I said, then why don't they import from other countries? They will be much more impartial. So somewhere along the road, I think we seem to have lost our identity. It is time that we regain. So for example, the assembly proceedings. Why we are conducting assembly proceedings in English, parliamentary proceedings in English? Why are we reluctant to learn Hindi, for example, as a legal language? We are tolerating, we are excelling in English, but we are resistant to learn another Indian language. Why?
I think, thank you for hitting the nail on the head. I think the answer is very simple, because we are being dominated by the westernized elite in our own country itself. I would not suggest, as Sri Aurobindo says, that one has to really take up a fight against the West in the manner in which, for example, Khomeini's Iran did, for example. That's not my intention. Or the kinds of aggression which is taking place in the Gaza Strip in Israel. That's not my. What I'm saying is that I'm talking about decolonizing the Indian mind, that Sri Aurobindo had talked about much before Edward Said, whom we all of us read, for example, in the Academia, 1978 book, how the Orient has been constructed by the West, for example. If the West is masculine, the Orient is feminine. If the West is rational, we are irrational. It is nothing but a counterpart of patriarchy that male constructs vis-a-vis the woman, for example, claiming that he is really rational and the woman is irrational and hysterical, and people have seen that there is absolutely no scientific basis in that. Now the point is, you have highlighted the issue and the answer is very much there, sir. It is being really debated by linguists and translators. I just want to quote one thing before I end. You are Ananta Murthy, the former president of the Sahitya Academy. He said, in India, the more literate, educated you are, the less languages that you know. And he said, an ordinary bus conductor in Bangalore has more languages than an educated member of the corporate class. IT specialists, for example. And we teach them, because to say Baba and Bapu have become really, inferior, when we must call daddy and mommy. And some families saw that when the servants started calling the children daddy and mommy, we thought that we must go back to Bapu and Ma, for example. So that is a commentary of our own times, how we are really aping. And, V.S. Naipaul, the Caribbean author from an Indian origin, he wrote this fine book called Mimic Men. And we have excelled in mimicry, my friends, imitating. And imitation is done only by monkeys and apes, not by human beings.
Yes, any other question? There's a question there.
Sure.
Sir, we should two important things. That when the language dies, the culture dies. And you also said that Sanskrit is part of all languages in the world. But recently, when the central government announced celebration of the Sanskrit week, there was so much of resistance and hullabaloo. So why not intellectuals, professors like you, come out and try to establish the superiority and the greatness of Indian culture, which is inbuilt in the Sanskrit language. I hope you will now give a serious thought to this and see that the criticism that is being faced now against the celebration of the Sanskrit week is very strongly defended and opposed.
Thank you, sir, for that clarion call. I'd like to inform you that the answer has been already given by many people. What we find is the result of very reactionary kind of a response to Sanskrit, for example, has been really buried in the sand, has been destroyed, because it really arose, in a certain kind of a movement which took place in one of the states of South India, namely Tamil Nadu, on the basis of the fact that languages coincide with race, for example. Northern race, Aryans, and southern race, for example, Dravidians, for example. But you'll be happy to know, sir, I don't have to really begin the revolution. People who had really believed in that as an article of faith have given it up. I'm referring to Romila Thapar. Romila Thapar is saying that northern and southern Aryan and Dravidians are not racial types, but cultural types. But Romila Thapar had been anticipated by many, many years, decades, by Sri Aurobindo. If the Aurobindians are not going to read, Sri Aurobindo, who is going to read? Have you all read The Origin of Aryan Speech by Sri Aurobindo, which is a kind of a prelude to the Secret of the Vedas? And very eloquently Sri Aurobindo says, and he was there down south, close to Tamil Nadu in Pondicherry, and he was a close friend of Subramaniam Bharati, and he said that Aryans and Dravidians are not racial types. So if Aryans and Dravidians are not racial types, surely Sanskrit is part of the common heritage, and therefore there should be no objection. So I think unlearning has to take place. As some educator has to said that most of the types of our own life goes in learning, and we spend rest of our life in unlearning all the dogma that we have learned. So I think, sir, the attempt is being made. It will take a little time because we have been largely subjugated. And where are those theories coming from? Those theories are coming from people like Max Muller and others, for example. And there was no grain of truth in this. So I made a suggestion for the cultural retrieval, not to be a chauvinist, not to be a fanatic, but to be able to understand ourselves better, so that we can engage with the world, including the West.
Excuse me, sir. अहं डॉक्टर शेषरेखा रेड्डी नामधेया संस्कृत विभागस्य अध्यक्षः अस्मि MA PhD अपि अहं षड्भाषायां प्रवीणा अस्मि भवतः व्याख्यानं विज्ञानदायकम् आसीत् अहं educated, you said educated people know less languages. That is not true. My mother tongue is Telugu. I am born in Hyderabad. I know Telugu, Marathi, Hindi, Gujarati, and Urdu. Now I am learning. I am the student of Manu. That So I wrote a book on yoga in Telugu, and now again I am planning to write it in Urdu. That yoga system is there in Muslims, namaz culture. That is, so educated people know less, you said. What all you talk, that I agree. But that sentence, I don't want to agree. It is 78 years.
Okay. I just have offered a caveat. My own prayer is that there should be more educated people like you in our country. And secondly, ma'am, may you become the HID minister.
No, but he did not say, he said in the corporates. He didn't say he didn't really say. So people like you are less, and what he is saying, Ekamandike Radu, they don't know so many.
You have a question there?
He didn't.
మోహన్ సార్ మోహన్ గారు భారతీయ భాషలే ఎక్కడ లేవండి ఇంక సాంస్క్రిట్ ఇంగ్లీష్ బదులు సాంస్క్రిట్ రోజు పెడితే ఎట్లా ఇంగ్లీషు బానిసరం మళ్ళీ సాంస్క్రిట్ బానిసరం కావాలి బుద్ధుడు సాంస్క్రిట్ ప్రబోధించిన పాలి ప్రజల భాషలో చెప్పాడు ప్రజల భాషలు మగ్గిపోయినాయి వాటి స్థానం కల్పించిన తర్వాత మీరు ఇంగ్లీష్ చెప్పండి సంస్కృతం చెప్పండి ఇంకొక అనేక ఇతర భాషలు చెప్పండి
I have understood, sir. If I cannot understand, I have no business to be in Hyderabad and Telangana right now. So, on that hilarious note, but I am saying that, let me go back to this theorization of Anandamurti. I mean, he said something fantastic, because unity and diversity that we are constantly talking about. And Anandamurti said something very interesting. He said, if you stress on unity, diversity manifests itself. And if you stress on diversity, unity will manifest itself. This whole question of the debate between Indian languages and English, in a sense, it's a false issue. It's a false debate. Because he said, actually, give you this final example, at 7:30 in the evening, Doordarshan, there is a kind of a, announcement. Dum! Then there is a writing, it says, Jatiya Karyakram, National Program. And Anandamurti was asking rhetorically, excuse me, what was happening before that? Was it anti-national program? Programs in the regional languages. He said, I should be able to remain in Shimoga, my home district, and listen to the program of the local people. But Mandi House is going to really bombard Santa Barbara on me, for example. I don't have a choice. So if you are talking about democratization of culture that I was talking about, then I think there should be a freedom of choice. So if you believe in the Indian languages, then there will be no issue, because English, in any case, as it's been said rightly by K.R. Srinivas Iyengar, that it is the gift of the goddess Saraswati to India. So English has been grafted in our own soil itself. So what is the issue between Indian languages and English? But the only thing is that our own paradigm has to change. Our fundamental approach to the worldview has to change. If you get that, then everything else will fall in its place.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I'm really grateful to everyone who has asked questions and made this academic session interesting. And thank you for keeping with the time. We could actually engage in a lot of questions. Thank you so much. Our next speaker today is Professor K. Purushottam Reddy. He has been an eminent environmentalist, academician, and development activist of India, and is a multifaceted personality with many successes and is widely known as a man of masses and environment. Professor's long public life and activism spans across the environmental and developmental areas such as sustainable agriculture, environmental policies and public policies on sustainable development, Panchayat Raj and rural development, urban studies, restoration of damaged ecosystems, etc. He received his MA, MPhil and PhD degrees in political science from Osmania University. His PhD was on environmental policy and education and investigative analysis of eco-degradation of Pachet, in Andhra Pradesh. Currently, Professor K. Purushottam Reddy is working on public policies which would aim at sustainable development of India and on alternative development models on the lines of World Commission on Environment and Development report. He is also spreading massive awareness among the youths to save the planet. Following the dictum, think globally, act locally, conducting campaigns, save Hyderabad from the impending doom in terms of environmental issues. In this regard, area action committees are being set up to make the localities clean and green. So we have an environmentalist here with us, and he would share his views on Sri Aurobindo, a social activist. Sir, please.
Respected Chairperson, my senior Professor Sitaram Reddy Garu, Professor Sachidananda Mohanty, the speaker who has spoken eloquently just now, my inspiration Dr. Anand Reddy. Friends, I would like to utilize this occasion to connect to both Sri Aurobindo and Professor Madhusudan Reddy. Before I get into the subject, I recall 50 years ago when the Institution of Human Study was inaugurated in the buildings opposite Law College, where now we have the NSS program offices, offices located. 50 years ago, I was a witness to the launch of the Institution of Human Study. And these 50 years, I was not very much associated with the building of the institution, but my father, whom the seniors here, they know, Raja Reddy, and my mother, they were all devotees of Sri Aurobindo and great friends of Professor Madhusudan Reddy. The Institute of Human Study, I request all of you to focus on the name itself. Human study, and human beings have as many dimensions as possible. Ever since, to be more precise, from 1958, when for the first time I visited Pondicherry. Since then, indirectly, I was always consciously, directly, indirectly influenced by Sri Aurobindo. And when it came to my MPhil, I did MPhil on Sri Aurobindo, his political philosophy. But friends, I have not gone into the depth of his philosophy because of my background, political science. I have always been inspired by Sri Aurobindo, and for me, he appeared as a fountain of activism. Every action, right from his childhood to the last, to November 1950, I have a quotation here. His mind was constantly thinking about the planet Earth, trying to make this planet a much better place so that we can survive, trying to focus on the commonalities, trying to weld the people of the planet Earth into one. His religion, I come to the details later, and he was focusing humanity as a religion. Friends, I don't think it is possible for me to throw any depth on Sri Aurobindo, but I can only take a few glimpses of his life and bring to your kind notice. The first and foremost thing that has inspired not only me, but several intellectuals of this country is, way back in 1889, when Sri Aurobindo joined the University of Cambridge, and he was always a meritorious student, appeared for ICS, automatically got selected. He became an ICS probationer, but he did not want to join the service. If only he had joined the service, he would have been His Majesty's loyal servant. But he wanted to serve Bharat Mata, and therefore he sacrificed it at the altar of Mother India. He deliberately refrained himself from attending the horse riding test. In those days it was must. And that is how the sacrifice schedule begins. It is not a joke, friends. An ICS probationer, 100% guaranteed, high class, comfortable life, that to think of the British India, but then he had the guts to say no. A person, actually the personality develops when you begin to sacrifice. And it is that which has endeared him, to begin with, immensely with the people of this country. After that he came to India, he took to teaching. We are all academicians, we feel proud that he chose teaching to ICS. Joined Baroda, but then his soul was yearning for freedom. He wanted to liberate this country. And his next phase of activism was, he was very, very critical of the moderates of that time. In political science, when we teach India's freedom struggle, particularly, when it comes to the beginning of the Congress, 1885 to 1905, that particular period, we had towering personalities like Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Madhav Govind Ranade, Dadabhai Naoroji and Firoz Shah Mehta, and I am not here to belittle them. They were great people in their own way, and they were bound by certain difficulties. But when Aurobindo came to India, because he functions at a higher level, already evolved person, from mental to the beginnings of a supramental level, and he found these people to be Lilliputians and pygmies. And that is why, in a very bitter criticism of the Congress, Congress means India's freedom struggle then, I just would like to read out. He blasted the Congress, and in his own words, that the methods it has chosen are not the right methods, and the leaders in whom it trusts not the right sort of people to be leaders. In brief, Sri Aurobindo laments that we are at present the blind led, if not by the blind, at any rate by the one-eyed. And he was bitterly critical of the approach of the moderates. you know, they believed in just submitting memorandums. There was plague in Surat city, and Gopal Krishna Gokhale, you know, hats off to their individual, they are above suspicion. He wrote a masterpiece in English, but then the beginning and the ending was that your most loyal servant, allow me to submit, beg your pardon. What is this begging? Aurobindo was very, very critical of the language used there. Said it is your right. You demand. The word demand was not there. And he uses one particular word. He declared that Indians might, they should not be holding, supplicating or begging, praying type. Ni Panchan Dora, Maku ivi kavali ginte. Ante, we request you. You can see Sri Aurobindo as an emotional activist. And the activist in him was coming out. Friends, Baroda was something like a cradle of Indian nationalism. He had very towering, very young students like K.M. Munshi. And Munshi later on writes that Aurobindo was for him, in his own words, he says, a poet, a master of several languages, but constantly enveloped in mystery. It's not easy to understand Aurobindo. Even K.M. Munshi, because he was a student there. Naturally, Aurobindo appeared as a mystic to him. As Anand Bhaiya pointed out in the morning, we need to make a conscious effort to understand Aurobindo. And without that effort, it will always remain a mystery. From here, we go to the next stage. The partition of Bengal. The next, because there may not be continuity, but certain glimpses are good enough to highlight the personality of Aurobindo from the point of view of social activism. 1905, the British government decided to partition Bengal. And please recall the Bengal of those days. On one side we had Bankim Chandra Chatterjee. Through his masterpiece Anand Mat, where the song Bande Matram was stirring the soul of the youngsters of this country and motivating them, guiding them, galvanizing them, ultimately preparing them to lead, to liberate this country. But every other person in Bengal was like that. Lala Lajpat Rai, Punjab, Bipin Chandra Pal, Tilak from Maharashtra, but above all of them, there was Sri Aurobindo. And together, they could. There was also an underground like Saraswati Nadi near Sangam. The underlying current was terrorism. Many youth in this country were inspired. And we have the stream of Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad, Rajguru and several others. Jatindranath Basu. Jatin Das, actually popularly known as Jatin Das. And then Barim Ghosh, Aurobindo's own brother, actually Sri Aurobindo requests his brother to help them. But it was Aurobindo's whose writing stirred this country. That is very important. And my next sentence would explain that the Britishers in this country, they feared Aurobindo most. And here, I would like to comment. C.R. Das, Chittaranjan Das, who stood up in the court of Calcutta when Aurobindo was arrested and pleading for Aurobindo's release, C.R. Das describes Aurobindo as a prophet of nationalism. But to the Britishers, he was the most dangerous man the British Raj had to reckon with. And this is Lord Minto, you know, the Viceroy, the then Viceroy, writing to Mr. Morley, who was Secretary of State UK. The most dreaded personality. The Britishers were afraid. That is an indication. And that is the indication that Aurobindo was number one, and it was he who was conscientizing the people of this country. And because he firmly believed that India had to be free, because India had a role to play in the comity of nations in the days to come. It is from that, not from any narrow parochial angle, because any further delay means deprival of the positive role that India would be playing. Therefore, for the sake of the earth, friends, we go a little further. In the actual hearing, when Sri Aurobindo was arrested and kept in the Alipur jail, I have a few words of Chittaranjan Das because it's important that I bring to your kind notice. And C.R. Das says, long after he is dead and gone, it is here, he means Sri Aurobindo, his words will be echoed and re-echoed, not only in India but across distant seas and lands. Therefore, I say that the man in his position is not only standing before the bar of the court here, but before the bar of the High Court of history. All-time great personality. And telling the judge, look, here is the person who, you know, and about the person, you know, the judge had to be conscious, because it's important that he gives the right kind of judgment. Standing before the High Court of history, friends, we make an attempt to understand Sri Aurobindo, but I think it is not just his role in India's freedom struggle that is important. Because ultimately it is the sacred duty of every thinker that they not only analyze and think for the day, they try to present a vision for the future. And I consider Sri Aurobindo's greatest contribution is that he gave a vision of development for humanity. And asking the people to rise above their narrow, whether you can call it caste or language or nation, you know, they are very important. But then we should not be stuck there. We need to go beyond. And it is here that his, of course many books are there, but two of his books have attracted me. And in fact, in the limited time that Anand Bhaiya gave me, because initially I was scared of writing, and I told him, ये तो मेरा बस का नहीं है. I don't think I'll be able to do it. I told him frankly. But then, you know, Anand also has a long-term plan for me, and he wanted me to take up this. He wanted more and more people to speak on Sri Aurobindo. With that intention, because of his encouragement, I took it up. And these two books are, number one, The Ideal of Human Unity, in which Sri Aurobindo explains the process by which humanity has evolved politically from tiny fragmented communities into kingdoms and nation states. The prospects of its further evolution into a single global community and the difficulty in fashioning institutions that can effectively foster that goal. Friends, this is very important, particularly in the context of modern day. Now, if we look at the last 100 years, we are now in 2014. Exactly 100 years ago, the First World War began. And these last 100 years have been, many things were happening on this planet Earth. The First World War from 14 to 18, then the period of uncertainty. Humanity made an attempt at League of Nations, but that was the first attempt and therefore there were quite a few pitfalls. It could not succeed. Then the world had to witness another world war, 1939 to 45. And towards the end of the World War II, we saw something which should never have happened. The bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And what was the big crime the citizens of Hiroshima and Nagasaki did? Did they deserve that kind of punishment? You know what happens when a nuclear bomb falls? The intensity of heat that is generated, which is good enough to vaporize the people. Simply, galle galchipotaru. Such a horrendous ending of the World War II. And humanity felt that we can't, if this was the fate of the World War II, one can imagine what would be in the event of a third World War. It was then that the UN was conceived. And what a marvelous work United Nations has been doing. It's easy to point out the pitfalls, they should have done something more. It's easy. Criticism is welcome. But look at the positive things they have done. Initially, they were more worried about preventing another world war. But later on, they started working on food, on the health of the child, on the care of the mother, prevention of diseases, protection of environment. Just for your friends, we are now at a very critical stage, even while analyzing United Nations, because the Secretary General himself has gone on record demanding a restructure of UN. And this is because the planet Earth right now, it is facing 5 major issues. Without going into the details, one is the depletion of the ozone layer, global warming, loss of biodiversity, spreading desertization, and the challenge before the world about the nuclear threat. More than 600 nuclear reactors and about 50,000 nuclear warheads. What if something goes wrong? And what if there is a nuclear holocaust? What will happen to this planet Earth? What are we doing to prevent this kind of a holocaust? It is Sri Aurobindo who comes up with a solution. All that we need to do is just go into the book, the idea of human unity. And wars start basically because we don't believe. For example, we are against Pakistan and Pakistan is against India. There is a mental framework. Similarly, we are against China, China is against us. But then what if we remove the barriers and when we begin to think that we are all one and that we are a humanity and humanity is the religion? That would be a great occasion. So, the second book, Sri Aurobindo, that is the human cycle, there he explains the process of social and psychological development of human civilization, the stages through which it passes and the underlying currents of its cyclical movements. Friends, it is not for nothing that Sri Aurobindo has been hailed as one of the world's greatest, not one of the, definitely the world's greatest philosopher. I have a few quotes just to highlight the significance of what I just made a mention. Romain Rolland, a French Nobel laureate in literature, had this to say about Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo, the foremost of Indian thinkers, who has realized the most complete synthesis between the genius of the West and the East. We have another professor from Harvard University, Professor Sorokin. Aurobindo's treatises are among the most important works in philosophy, the most important works in philosophy, ethics and humanities. Another professor from Stanford says, Frederick Spielberg, we have Plato, Spinoza, Kant and Hegel, but they do not have the same all-embracing structure. They do not have the same vision. Raymond Frank from Syracuse University says, Sri Aurobindo is one of the greatest thinkers. Indeed, he has attained incomparable greatness. You can't even compare as a poet, as a philosopher and saint. And Tagore says, India will speak through Sri Aurobindo to the world. Friends, such being the activism, a visionary, a philosopher in the real sense, a person who is in love with knowledge, a person who is trying to elevate human mind to a higher level, take it to the next level. Because evolution will be at all levels. Just as we started from a small little community, we developed kingdoms, nation states and now UN. Similarly, in our own thinking, our own levels of intellect has to grow. And it is here, as we go a little further, the last one. In the unity of human race, he says this unity was always at the core of his philosophy, and according to Aurobindo, it can be achieved only if the religion of mankind spiritualizes itself and becomes the inner law of human life. A religion of humanity means the growing realization that there is a divine reality in which we are all one, that humanity is its highest vehicle on earth, and that the human race and the human being are means by which it will progressively reveal itself here, leading to unity of human race and common life. Lastly, friends, this point I would like to, Sri Aurobindo was not just a philosopher who had withdrawn to Pondicherry just because it was under a different government, that is the French. No. Sitting there, contemplating, meditating, he was trying to find solutions to the problems faced by humanity worldwide. I'll just give you one example, not that you do not know. I know this gathering is an enlightened gathering, particularly on Sri Aurobindo, but still it's my duty to point out. You know, in November, on the 11th of November 1950, we all know that Sri Aurobindo technically passed away on 5th of December 1950. And you can calculate how many days earlier. Sri Aurobindo, thinking about the world and India, is not a withdrawn person, a typical sadhu, sannyasi, that kind of, he is not an escapist from that angle. A very positive, dynamic personality concerned about the welfare of the people of India and welfare of the planet Earth. He is cautioning the government of India and advising the government of India to take a tough stand against China, because China by then, had already taken hold of Tibet or preparing to take hold, and cautioned way back in 1950, Sri Aurobindo said that China would, they are there on the borders of India only to threaten India and to invade India. In his own words, the basic significance of Mao Tibetan adventure is to advance China's frontiers right down to India and stand poised to strike at the right moment. Sri Aurobindo cautioned Indian government and advised it to take a firm line with China. Denounce openly her nefarious intentions and make every possible arrangement consonant with our sovereignty and self-respect to facilitate an American intervention in our favor to protect our country, our democracy and our culture. Friends, this is 1950. Today when we talk about American intervention here and there, our opinions are different. Today the whole world has come to a conclusion that democracy is the best form of government. People want freedom, whether it is the Jasmine Revolution or in China. You know, what happened in the Tiananmen Square is not an isolated incident. It is there in every individual. Someday it's going to burst. Nobody can, silence the people forever and ensure that the essential needs of the poorest of the poor are taken care of. Nobody lives by bread alone, friends. Rudinstove's famous novel, Not by Bread Alone. Even if the whole of China can be converted into a 5-star jail, people are not going to live as pigs. They are human beings and they love freedom. Someday they would urge, this inner urge for freedom would convert the one-party dictatorship into a democracy. Friends, Sri Aurobindo, people should not confuse that he was a philosopher, an escapist. He had to leave because of an inner voice cautioning him that he had a higher role to perform. He left India, of course, Pondicherry is in India in the larger sense. He left the British Raj, went to Pondicherry only to ensure that he will not be disturbed on a day-to-day basis. And for the next 40 years he was working relentlessly, trying to improve his own personality, his own understanding from what we normally call as levels of intellect. There he was ably aided by the mother, and together, though they are one, they have tried to showcase, a place where spiritualism is bound to fill all this country. It will overflow India and finally overflow the world. I thank Anand Reddy for giving me this wonderful opportunity. And the books which were released today, I happened to go through one on social development, written by my teacher, Professor Mansuban Reddy. And I would like to organize another book release for that. And that will be in Hyderabad, because nothing wrong in having any number of book releases organized. The purpose is that the subject should go to the people. And I have agreed to write a review on that particular book, and I hope in the days to come we will all work together to make the vision of Sri Aurobindo real. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can give your comment.
Thank you. No, I am not giving comment. Thank you, Professor Master Reddy, Professor Purushottam Reddy. Purushottam Reddy he was my colleague in the University College of Arts and Sciences. A very nice exposition of the subject matter that was given to him, political activism, or what we say, Aurobindo activism. I, for myself, in my understanding of the human evolution, I could see only two persons in the 20th century who devoted themselves totally to understanding of the human evolution and development. And they were not activists, They never went out organizing movements. One was Karl Marx, who stayed London, stayed in his room, went every day to the British Library for nearly 30-40 years. Same is the case with Sri Aurobindo. When he settled in Pondicherry Ashram, he did come out for 40 years. He didn't go out of the building, organizing activities, but devoted totally to the understanding of the human evolution and development. As we all know, that human evolution has started from a single cell to multicellular body. This is how Sri Aurobindo has explained in his theory of evolution, which my Professor Masood has brought out. Now, this process of evolution, it was only towards the direction, what we call, from crudity to refinement, from perfection to imperfection and greater perfection. Human evolution was moving in this direction, and it will be moving in this direction. That is my understanding of things. Now, in the events of the thing, what I could see is Alexander the Great, who brought a huge army to conquer the world, could not cross Indus River. The Britishers who came as a business people took permission from the Indian rulers. They could subjugate us for 200 years. And finally, putting boats in London and other British building, Indians and dogs are not allowed. This was it. And toward this, people like Aurobindo and other things, they have adopted different channels of enlightening Indians to understand from where, which place we have been brought. Who has brought this situation? Is it the foreigners? Is it the other nationality individuals? Or is the Indians who are responsible for it? Because it is our division that was taking place in Indian society on various aspects that we will divide a nation. And this situation was properly used by intelligent British administration. Now, this was our this thing. And Aurobindo has played a major role in bringing certain basic aspects to the Indian mind to think that what next can be done. What is the thing that we can do when we can exist, live as an individuals without subjugating or without harming ourselves, harming our individual self and the. In this aspect, I would like to bring to your notice that all these organizations, they are only projecting one aspect, human evolution, human development. Now, Indian society as it is, never concentrated on only human development. Human development is a part of the total development, which also includes the other life principles, like the animal life, the plant life. They existed. That the Indian society gave as much importance to the plants and the animals as human beings. For example, I take you to the Jainism as a school of thought. Jainism, they never wanted to curtail the life of an individual life. They want, as you want to live the entire span of your life, you have no right to take the life of any other living. That is the same case with plant also. Now we worship so many plants. Tulasi is worshipped, neem plant is worshipped, all plants we worship. We worship all animals. Monkey is worshipped, elephant is worshipped, tiger is elephant, all animals, the Indian society is worshipped. Considering life principle as a total entity, it is one entity, undifferentiated. You cannot compartmentalize into human evolution, plant evolution, and this is a life principle that evolved from what matter into the life. So, thanking Professor Purushottam Reddy and Professor Mohanty. Now I will request you to put any question that you can both these thinkers.
I cannot help sharing an idea with you. without being very explicit for reasons well known to you as well as me. I think the downfall of the subcontinent, that is India, has started with the division of Bengal state by the foreign rulers. Though they were speaking the same language, simply based on the religion, the Bengal was divided into East Bengal and West Bengal. Even today, the people of Bangladesh speak Bengali. Even today, their favorite music is Rabindra Sangeet. Now that is where our downfall started. Please beware. I cannot be more explicit than this.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I should have introduced myself earlier. I am Raghavendra Rao, retired senior divisional manager LIC. Now over to Dr. Purushottam Reddy. Sir, you may have recollection or may not, but I do have recollection and I remember you very well. 1 decade ago, you made a powerful address before the students of the College of Insurance and Financial Planning, Secunderabad, started by Machiral Appara. Am I right, sir?
Yeah.
So, in that function, you had given a prophetic statement that Hyderabad is going to be a desert in another decade. I think that has almost come true now. Now you are talking about Aurobindo as a social activist, but now he sacrificed his IFS. I request you now to come up as an environmental activist and see that Hyderabad is somehow saved from becoming a Sahara. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Friends, sir, Ramakrishna garu, mere question na observation kada. Yeah.
You can comment on that.
Yeah.
I would welcome.
Yeah, sure. Now first I would like to touch that. Regarding your observations, sir, about Hyderabad, thanks for recalling my speech on that day.
I was a faculty member there.
Oh, nice. Sir, about environmental issues, particularly Hyderabad, the way it is growing, I would like to comment for any major city which population is increasing. For example, the aggregation is a continuity. There are two reasons. One, the facilities in the city. Second is the conditions in the surrounding, in the periphery. For example, up to 150 kilometers all around Hyderabad. The shortage of water there, lack of irrigation facilities, and also because of global issues like global warming, climate change, the rainfall pattern underwent change. My senior is here. And together I am also a witness, we in this part of Telangana, we were witness to rain-fed crops. Varshadhara pantalu ekku undi. Today you go anywhere for hundreds of miles, you will not see any rain-fed crop. You can find some crop only under irrigation. So because that particular region was neglected, that is one. And also people also, there has been flight of talent from the village to the city and city to America and elsewhere. People, and because agriculture by itself had become uneconomic. The terms of trade are not in favor of the farmers and, so many other things coupled. Ultimately, the villages have become almost like deserted villages, except in the newly created command areas where there is some life. Sir, as we proceed into the future, because all of us are citizens basically, because we are not doing the things which we ought to have been doing, for example, rainwater harvesting, for example, on our rooftops, if we are not generating solar power, unless we, each one of us, we put it into our lifestyle, it becomes part of our culture, we cannot survive. It is not possible. We are all heading towards a big catastrophe. It is on occasions like this where I'm grateful to Anand Reddy because it's a big gathering and it's happening in Osmania University, one of the leading universities of the country. We are focusing on Sri Aurobindo. We are drawing inspiration from him. When Sri Aurobindo is is an inspiration to the social activists, drawing from him, because he has been a fountain of social activism, we should all take it in a very serious manner. Environmental protection cannot anymore be done by a few individuals. Everybody has a role to perform and it should go to the people. On that question, Professor Ramakrishna Garu, about the division of Bengal, I think the Britishers were actually testing the Indian skill, Indian nation. They started with the partition of Bengal and they ended with the partition of India. That was something like a test, It is unfortunate, sir, that the movement for unification of Bengal was confined to Bengal only. Remaining part of India did not respond to that problem because by then we were not yet a nation.
The opposition was very much opposed by Sri Aurobindo and others.
Sri Aurobindo opposed, but then, the entire movement was confined to Bengal. From Hyderabad, from Chennai, from Kerala, from Punjab. It's not that we all stood up against the Britishers because we were divided into so many principalities and it is only after Gandhiji came that we became a nation. Again, I am not giving the credit to one individual because what we call, even as the freedom struggle grows, it matures itself. Nation building, we became a nation only after 1920. And when particularly in the context of the salt satyagraha. It was then that almost everybody participated. Even in the remote villages. Bengal time, the country was not ready. Otherwise, we would have stood up as one person and said no. Suppose they were protests in every city, do you think the British would have continued with that? Lack of knowledge, lack of coordination. But one thing, sir, as you rightly cautioned, it is once again we the people of this country, we have to not only stand up as one person, but now we need to be standing shoulder to shoulder with citizens of other countries. And now the problem is one of survival of the planet Earth itself. And therefore we should learn to make a common cause. And that is where, that particularly Sri Aurobindo's books like the Human Cycle and the Ideal of Human Unity. When we begin to think that every other person also is a human being and that we are part of them, that is going to build this world into a one family.
Is there any question? I think it's time to conclude. It's 1 o'clock. I think.
I would like to thank both our speakers for keeping with the time and also engaging in questions because that was an important part to get questions and get clarifications on and get their viewpoints on what they think of our questions. So I'm indeed grateful to both the speakers for keeping with the time and addressing such interesting issues that it became the world versus Sri Aurobindo kind of topics that we had, whether it's about the linguistic aspect or the political aspect, but cultural aspect, culture versus Sri Aurobindo, Western culture versus Sri Aurobindo, and British colonization versus Sri Aurobindo. So it was very interesting. Next session we will have at 2 o'clock after lunch, which will be on a different dimension. But before we end this session, I request our chairperson to hand over these 2 book sets to our speakers.
Speakers. Let me first give to Professor Mohanty because he was the first speaker. This gift is to Professor
I genuinely thank Professor Sitaram Reddy to have chaired this session. Thank you so much, sir, for your patience.
Philosophy will have all their patience.
There are a couple of announcements. From 1 to 2 we have a lunch break and we have buses, 3 buses waiting outside. Those who have vehicles, please take your vehicles and go to the guest house, Osmania University guest house where the lunch is arranged. And the rest of them can take the buses. The buses will go drop you there. You can have your lunch and get onto the buses, come here back. Sharp at 2 we begin. I'm glad we are on time. So
Well,
Not easy, very difficult.
for the wonderful session being conducted by my teacher, Sitaram teacher, I have the honor, I kept the honor for myself, to give this set of 5 books to him, and thank you once again.
We disperse now. I am sure our buses are there waiting, and you would be directed to the guest house downstairs. Thank you. At the morning session, it would be more on poetry and the poetical aspect and the literary aspects of Sri Aurobindo's facet, we would say, out of the 4 aspects. We have covered the social, political, and now we will have Professor T. Ramakrishna who will be speaking, sharing with us on Sri Aurobindo's poetic aspect, and later the philosophical that would be shared by Dr. Reddy and Dr. Paranspe. So, to chair this session, I request Shri K.V. Rao to please come on the dais. Shri K.V. Rao has been basically an electrical engineer born in 1935. He has been attached and attracted to Sri Aurobindo and the mother since 1968. And he had the fortune to have mother's blessings but with her own hands in 1972 August. And he also got Sri Aurobindo's blessings in the same year. He has translated Sri Aurobindo's and mother's works in Telugu and is continuing with this work with the same zeal and enthusiasm. Thank you, sir, for accepting to chair the session. Now, our first speaker today is Professor T. Ramakrishna. He is a devotee of the mother and Sri Aurobindo and has immensely contributed to the readers and lovers of Sri Aurobindo by translating Savitri in Telugu. We've already heard him in the morning a little. He was born in Chittoor in Andhra Pradesh and studied in SP University, Tirupati. He was awarded his PhD in NIMHANS, Bangalore, after which he joined the Department of Neurobiology, University of North Carolina in USA as a Fulbright Hays Senior Scholar for his postdoctoral research. Professor T. Ramakrishna served in SV University, Tirupati, NIMHANS, Bangalore, University of Calicut, Bangalore University, Dravidian University, Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research and Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, and University of Oxford. Along with his latest translations of Savitri, published in 2009, Professor Ramakrishna has 3 more books to his credit: Human Brain, Essays on Awareness, published in 2001, Brain, Language and Memory, published in 2002, and a collection of Telugu poetry, Nishabdayanam, also published in 2002. Sir is a recipient of Major General Bhatia Oration Award by the Association of Physiologists and Pharmacologists of India, 2002. He is a member of Royal Society of Arts, London. Now we have here a scientist, a neurobiologist who will be speaking on something very, in a way opposite to science, and yesterday he told us that there is nothing opposite for him. Everything is a melange, everything is a complete whole. So sir will be speaking to us on Sri Aurobindo as poet par excellence. Sir, please.
तुम्ही पधारो मां अनंत प्रकाशिनी अमित वरदायिनी. With this prayer on my lips, I offer my humble salutations at the feet of Lord Vasudeva, dwelling in every one of your hearts. I am glad Dr. Anand Reddy has given me a chance to exchange my afternoon nap for the Yajna Phala. I am participating in a Yajna. I thank him for that. I thank Mrs. Anand Reddy also for the kind hospitality that we have been enjoying. I and Matan Panjabi on his behalf also, I thank both of them. Now, if I have to speak on the poetry of Sri Aurobindo, I should be a poet too. Yes, in my own way, in my own small way, I am a poet. I did write something in English, but I did write in Telugu also. The reason why I am mentioning this fact is, you should have the vision of the poet to see what the poet asks you to see. That's the reason. Now if we complain that people do not understand Savitri, there is a very reason for that. Everybody does not have a poetic vision, poetic sense. Everybody cannot appreciate a piece of art. Everybody cannot appreciate dance, music. So let us accept the mortals are of different kinds. But as the speakers of this morning have told us repeatedly that we must make an effort to civilize ourselves, to grow and receive that aesthetic sense. The benefit of that is immense because your sattvic pravritti grows with that. Aesthetics and sattvic sense, they go together. All arts, poetry, philosophy, music, everything in India have been directed towards the promotion of sattva guna. Although we do need our rajastama gunas, but so long as we keep promoting sattva guna, we are evolving. That is the process of evolution in a philosophical sense. That is what Sri Aurobindo says. In fact, one of the books that I love, written by Sri Aurobindo, it's not actually written, but it's a conversation copied, dictated and copied very faithfully. It was a very small book. I'm sure Professor Mohanty will be familiar with that. The title of it is Art, Poetry and Literature. I got it in 1988 when I went to the ashram. I love that book. That's the first book, in fact, which kept me in contact with Sri Aurobindo forever. And that's the reason why. Who is Pramana for the poetry of Sri Aurobindo? It can be only Sri Aurobindo. And the reason why, I have taken a quotation from that small book, which I shall read out, which I think will give the backdrop for what I am going to present to you later on. The vision mind in us is part of the inner being, and the inner mind, vital, physical, are not bound by the dull and narrow limitations of our outer physical personality and the small scope of the world it lives in. Its scope is vast, extraordinary, full of inexhaustible interest, and as one goes higher and higher of glory and sweetness and beauty. The difficulty is to get it through the outer human instruments, which are so narrow and crippled and unwilling to receive them. This is the quotation from that book. So if we keep this in mind and make special efforts to receive that, then and then only will be benefited. Now this 24,000 lines, this is the longest epic poem in English language written by anyone. The story is very small. Many people, they have some misconceptions. Sri Aurobindo does not tell the story of Savitri as we know it. It's a very brief story in Mahabharata, which comes in Aranya Parva. Maharshi Markandeya comes to visit the Pandavas while they were spending their years in the Aranya, the forest. Markandeya was speaking to Yudhishthira, and he was trying to console Yudhishthira and his brothers. Don't worry about the loss of your kingdom. Draupadi is so great, so pious, you will get back your kingdom because of Draupadi. Now, we have been listening to the social relevance of Sri Aurobindo. What a contemporary relevance it has got. Have you thought about it? Not only that, there was also Janaki Mata, who got so much of glory for Lord Rama her husband. Draupadi is equal to them. That is what Sri Markandeya Maharshi told Yudhishthira. Just because of Draupadi, you will get back to your kingdom. And there was one Savitri, I will tell you that story. He told very briefly. Now, you are all familiar with the small story of Savitri in Mahabharata, but choosing that small story in itself is a poetic masterstroke by Sri Aurobindo, because it deals with conquering of death, or if you are philosophically minded, I would say, I put it this way, realizing that you are immortal, though you think you are mortal. That realization must come, and Savitri helps us to realize that. But we want, as Sri Aurobindo warned us, that this path of realization is long, arduous, and that is why it took 24,000 lines for him of beautiful poetry to prove that point. But it is the very fact that he starts his epic poem, which is to pen the scene to come. See, he is a cinematographic poet. In fact, when Brown came to India, who wrote a commentary on Vemana Shatakam, he was the one, in fact, who wrote Pratipadartha, Tatparya for Vemana Shataka, one of our ethicists like Tiruvalluvar, for example. We remember Brown. He told, your Potana in Telugu, he is a photographer. Look at the way he describes the arrival of Mahavishnu to save Gajendra. When Gajendra was calling the Lord Narayana to save him, he ran. And how did he run? He ran in such a way that he still holds, you see, the sari, pallu of Lakshmi. Lakshmi was running, and then all his ayudhas run. He was in a hurry to save. And the way Potana described this scene, Brown was ecstatic. He said, what a photographer Potana is. Now you will find a cinematographer in Sri Aurobindo. The way he describes every scene, the way he begins this epic is tremendously dramatic, in the sense that he uses flashback as in modern cinematography. Because the first canto itself ends with the statement that it was the day when Satyavan must die. People wonder, Satyavan dies much later on after her marriage and after spending 1 year, though it was short-lived marriage. But why is he telling that this was the day that Satyavan must die? And then he goes back to the story of Savitri. It's very dramatic. And the arrival of Savitri was announced in the very beginning. I quote, "I felt the imperishable passage close. The waiting ear of nature heard her steps. The white-winged hymn of great priestly wind arose and fell upon the altar hills." Look at this scene of impending war he mentions in the very beginning itself. There is a great deal of significance to this, which I will tell you. I quote again, "No helper had she save the thing within. There was no witness of terrestrial eyes. The gods above and nature's soul below were the spectators of that mighty strife." This mighty strife is between a lonely woman without any sort of help, with no army, not even witnesses, with whom strife is going to be against the very Lord of death. What is stupendous scene? I am at least reminded of Kurukshetra and the spectacle of that Sena, Ubhaya Sena, Kauravas and Pandavas, where Krishna introduces all the relatives to Arjuna. It is not actually an introduction, it is taking away their life. You know that. And the whole Bhagavad Gita is directed towards that realization that you are immortal. And it took so many pages of conversation between Lord Krishna and Arjuna to make us realize that. The same thing is proved in Savitri by Aurobindo through beautiful poetry. And it starts with this scene of war. This war zone is something that makes you think, oh, there's going to be a war between the lonely woman and Lord Death. How is it going to be resolved? That is the interest that he tries to evoke in the reader. So, after this scene, he starts the story of Savitri. And how did he start the story? Ashwapati, he will elaborately describe King Ashwapati's yoga or penance for 18 long years, so that he can have children with the boon of the mother of mothers actually. In order to obtain this boon, he has to travel upwards to reach that mother of mothers who sits in Manidvipa. Those of you who are familiar with Manidvipa will realize that she sits in that Manidvipa across 18 compound walls. Symbol and a legend. You see, Ashwapati made this penance for 18 years symbolically because he had to cross 18 compound walls to reach Manidvipa, which is the abode of mothers. Who is this mother of mothers? The manifestation of the triple forces, Mahalakshmi, Mahasaraswati, Mahakali. And you can easily compare, in fact, Sita as the mortal manifestation of Mahalakshmi, Savitri as the mortal manifestation of Mahasaraswati, Jnana, and Draupadi as Mahakali. So Ashwapati has to go long way to have the darshan of this mother. And when did he finally arrive? After this arduous journey, Ashwapati arrived where, I quote again, forces and lives and beings and ideas are taken into the stillness for a while, and passing through a fruitful stage of death, and after long reconstituting sleep, resume their place in the process of the gods until their work in cosmic time is done. This is a cosmic time. By the time I finish this sentence, my life is gone. 67 years or 70 years or 75 years in cosmic time scale. So he is reminding you in the very beginning that what I am going to write is according to the cosmic time scale. It may take lakhs of years for this evolution. In fact, it did take several mortal years for the evolution to take place. But in the cosmic time scale, if you measure, it all happened very quickly. You must measure that in light years. This cosmic time is very, very important. When Ashwapati had darshan of the mother at the end of his arduous journey. But then, the events are also cosmic. What he is going to describe as events are also cosmic. This also is something that we have to remember. We are assured, however, our being looks beyond its walls of mind and it communicates with greater worlds. There are brighter earths and wider heavens than ours. Then where is the difficulty in having a glimpse of the mother of mothers? Because Sri Aurobindo assured us, our being looks beyond its walls of mind. Science doesn't do that. Because I and Makan Paranjape had been having long chats about science and spirituality. Our being looks beyond its walls of mind. Science doesn't. Science doesn't is my own, not Sri Aurobindo's. And it communicates with greater worlds. There are brighter earths and wider heavens than ours. So there is no difficulty in looking at them. attracted to the large and luminous depths of the ravishing enigma of her eyes, he saw the mystic outline of a face. The mother of mothers. He fell down at her feet, unconscious and prone. Naturally, Ashwapati became unconscious. The beauty of the mother is so great. In fact, I remember here, in one of the books that Sri Aurobindo wrote about our culture, the Renaissance, he describes, in fact, he compares how Valmiki described the eyes of Sita, and in the far south, down south, Kambar has described the same eyes of Sita. I am reminded when the eyes of mother attracted to the large and luminous depths of the ravishing enigma of her eyes. It is more or less the same thing that the Kambar and Valmiki describe the eyes of Sita. He fell down at her feet, unconscious and prone. Then suddenly there rose a sacred star, a divinizing stream possessed his veins, his body cells awoke to spirit sense. You remember, I started with the quotation of spirit sense. So Ashwapati got that spirit sense here the moment he had the glimpse of the mother of mothers. Of course, Shadul does not mention Manideepa, but the reference is very clear to those who are familiar with that. We have been told very clearly that the epic will reveal itself to the spirit sense. That's the point here. I quote again. I am the mystery beyond reach of mind. I am the goal of the travail of the suns. My fire and sweetness are the cause of life. This is what the mother is saying. It is very significant. Fire and sweetness. Then, naturally Ashwapati asks her, now I have to get back to the earth, where these things will not be available to me. How shall I rest content with mortal days and the dull measure of terrestrial things? I who have seen behind the cosmic mask the glory and the beauty of thy face. Hard is the doom to which thou binds thy sons. He laments, you are binding your sons to something else and not to this glory. Then what did the mother say? Mother in her infinite compassion assured the king. I quote again, O strong forerunner, I have heard the cry. One shall descend and break the iron law, change nature's doom by the lone spirit's power. All mights and greatnesses shall join in her. Beauty shall walk celestial on the earth. Mother is assuring Ashwapati. Delight shall sleep in the cloudlet of her hair. You know, you may get a doubt that Savitri is a goddess, is avatar, mother of mothers. You say that she comes down to the earth. It is natural, she conquers the death. How are we going to do that? You know, the mother assures, a branch of heaven transplant to human soil. Savitri is the transplant of heaven, transplant to human soil. Antu kattapadu divi nundi bhuviki antu kattapadutundi annamata. Savitri indiki digi vastundi. So it has been a transplant of the heaven. So you are having that legacy of the heaven. You have the genes. Fate shall be changed by an unchanging will. And how did she disappear? After speaking this word, she disappears. This is very significant again. How she disappeared, the description. And how did she disappear? I quote again, as a flame. Please remember this word flame. As a flame disappears in endless light, immortality extinguished in its own source, vanished the splendor vanished swiftly. She is a flame. As a flame is extinguished, mother vanishes. The splendor of the mother vanishes. Why I am drawing your attention to this is, throughout these 24,000 lines, Sri Aurobindo keeps on reminding you that Savitri is that flame. You know, after days, mother is portrayed here as a flame, symbolizing knowledge and wisdom. They are the dire necessities of the mortals on the earth. We want that wisdom, mother's wisdom. This is all about part 1 of Savitri. And how does the part 2 starts? Very significantly it starts with the birth and childhood of the flame, followed by growth of the flame. Who is that flame? It's the mother of mothers in the form of Savitri. This is after several lines of poetry. See, I am giving you this within a few minutes, but I had to scan several lines of poetry to fish out this. In fact, I was joking. I was telling last night to Brahman Reddy that, you see, when you asked me to speak on the poetry of Aurobindo, you are asking me to dip my hand into the ocean and pick up a fistful of salt. It's as difficult, but it is puzzled through a process. This delightful, gentle hint that is the flame which came down to earth from the heaven, is it launched throughout this poetry? You know, Dhvani as an alankara in the Indian literature is being given the immense importance. There is Uttamottama Alankara, Abhinava Gupta, there are so many grammarians who dwelt elaborately on this Alankara, Dhvani. Dhvani is a constant accompaniment of the musical ensemble of this beautiful poetry that Sri Aurobindo has put together. Like our Shruti, this Dhvani is a flame, is a flame, is a flame. He never lets you forget that. Now, what happened? Before Savitri is born, there is a Varnana of seasons. You know, that's also a traditional poetry, traditional literature. Ritu Varnana always finds a place because we never separate ourselves from the cosmos, from everything that surrounds us. Ritu Varnana finds a very important place in the Indian literature. Before Savitri was born, I quote, 3 thoughtful seasons passed with shining tread, and look at this sentence. This scanning one by one the pregnant hours. So Savitri is going to be born. He is talking about scanning the pregnant hours before that. Watched for a flame that lurked in luminous depths, the vigil of some mighty birth to come. Autumn lay in the glory of her moons, and dreamed in the splendor of her lotus pools, and winter and dew time laid their calm, cool hands on nature's bosom, still in a half sleep. See, the winter, the world is still in half sleep. How natural it is. I used to notice in Bangalore from 20-30 years ago, people never get up until 8 o'clock. But that cool weather is gone now, but even now they are getting only after 8 o'clock. You see, it's so natural. In winter, you want to sleep. And that's what he is describing about nature also. And another word he has used here is dew. You see, he is talking about the DUW time of the winter. And dew for birth also, DUE. That is also an alankara, Shlesha. So we have in Telugu, Vyartidhavyas. You can annoy చేసుకోవచ్చు to Bharata as well as Ramayana. Same book. Shlesha, I don't know that Makan Punjabi is familiar, I think he must be familiar with that. Vyartidhavyas, Shlesha alankara. Then spring. You look at the description of the spring. The spring, an ardent lover, leaped through leaves and caught the upbride in his eager clasp. And her growth. How does he describe his growth? I quote, her beauty and flaming strength were seen afar. Flaming strength of Savitri is seen afar. Like lightning playing with the fallen day, a glory unapproachably divine. Because her glory is unapproachably divine, nobody came forward to marry her, and she had to go in search of the Paramveshana. Even here there is a contemporary relevance. my partner. This was said in the days of Mahabharata. There is a contemporary relevance. This is not something that is to be enjoyed by the scholars or philosophers or poets. This is to be told in the classrooms. This is what I have been telling. The eternal love story of Satyavan and Savitri. So that we know what life is all about, what love